Mr. President, Majesties, Highnesses, Excellencies, Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, Excellencies, Mr. Abdullah Shahi, President of the General Assembly, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I wish to convey my warmest congratulations to His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres for his re-election to a second term as Secretary General. I have every faith that the major efforts that he undertakes to reform and steer our organization for the benefit of peace and security will bear fruit. I also wish to congratulate His Excellency Abdullah Shahid for his accession to the helm of the 76th session of the General Assembly. This presidency, this so-called presidency of hope, is one in which I wish him every success. Allow me now to convey my deepest gratitude and most sincere thanks to His Excellency Ambassador Volkan Bozkir, Permanent Representative of the Sister Republic of Turkey, for his prudent management of the work of the session that has just concluded of the General Assembly. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, this session is being convened for the second consecutive year, at a time in which our world is being dictated by the health crisis engendered by the COVID-19 pandemic and its variants. We're holding this session at a time when the consequences of the pandemic are on the rise. Indeed, the figures are terrifying. The number of infections at a global level has reached around 250 million. Deaths have exceeded 5 million. These are figures just as terrifying as those released last year. The other consequences of the crisis on a socio-economic and humanitarian level are even graver than those of the health crisis itself throughout the world. This is true, but it is particularly true for developing countries and poor nations, and this is due to the fragile nature of their economies that are unable to weather a crisis of such an extent and that has lasted so long, a crisis which has gravely threatened the lives of the people in these countries. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the measures taken to date to stem the pandemic throughout the world are not commensurate with expectations or needs. We must make more efforts and to cooperate more closely to guarantee the access of poor nations and developing nations to vaccines in sufficient quantities. We must help these countries to strengthen their technical capacities to, on the one hand, bolster their vaccination campaigns, and on the other hand, stymie the socio-economic and humanitarian damage arising from the COVID-19 crisis. In this regard, and from this high rostrum, we wish to reiterate the appeal launched by His Excellency President Mohammed Ould Cheikh al-Wazlini in several regional and international fora for the total definitive cancellation of external debt of African countries, so as to ensure that these African countries are able to overcome the economic consequences arising from the COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the government of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania, guided by His Excellency the President Mohamed Ould Ghani, has adopted several measures that have made it possible to halt the spread of the pandemic and to mitigate its impact, namely on the most vulnerable people among us. Among the flagship measures taken, I would point to the fact that a vaccination campaign was launched across the country. The rate of vaccination now stands at 15% in the country as a whole. Preventive measures have been taken across national territory and are being strictly implemented. The provision of basic commodities is guaranteed. These commodities have seen prices rise globally as a result of the pandemic, but are available on local markets in Mauritania at stable and reduced prices. 120,000 households, accounting for 600,000 people in vulnerable categories, benefit from health insurance. Thousands of households comprising poor and vulnerable people that have been dealt a heavy blow by the economic recession continue to benefit from direct financial aid.
The GA session represents an opportunity to study ways to raise the performance of our organization to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, which aims to address the major challenges related to the environment, the climate, the health, education, security, stability and development. From this standpoint, His Excellency President Mohammed Ould Cheikh Al-Ghazouani announced a holistic economic take-off plan which seeks to address the negative effect and overcome the challenges and constraints of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is an integrated economic program aimed at achieving the necessary conditions for a new economic recovery that gives the private sector the space and incentive to play a key role. This program aims at creating more job opportunities and conditions for an optimal use of our natural resources in the field of agriculture, animal development, mining and fisheries. Among the main themes of this program are the following: strengthening infrastructure that supports growth, strengthening the capacity of the social sectors and supporting demand, upgrading and supporting productive sector to achieve food self-sufficiency, supporting the formal and informal private sector, combating desertification and the drought, and supporting employment opportunities. This program is implemented in parallel with other programs within the government plan launched by the General Delegation for the National Solidarity and Anti-Exclusion, teleSUR, which aims to combat various forms of fragility and to ensure universal access to basic services such as electricity, drinking water, health and education, combating poverty and promoting social solidarity. Work is also being done to train and equip the young people with necessary skills to enable them to enter the labour market and contribute to the development of national economy, as well as to enable women to play their role by involving them strongly in political life and the conduct of public affairs, and work to consolidate the principle of separation of powers and independence of the judiciary, and to consolidate national unity and strengthen social cohesion, and to appease political life through extensive consultation with various national actors, building the rule of law and freedom and laying the foundation of good governance.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of security and the fight against terrorism, the government of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania has committed to developing an effective and efficient strategy to combat terrorism and the diverse forms of extremism we're witnessing in a comprehensive approach which takes account of the security aspects of the phenomenon, religious dialogue, the economic and social dimensions of the phenomenon, and we're doing all of this in cooperation with our regional partners to neutralize terrorism and dry up its sources of financing. And we're doing all of this with the most stringent respect for human rights. When the Mauritanian presidency of the G5 Sahel saw the launch of the Coalition for the Sahel in the Nouakchott Summit of 2020, this was an important moment. This framework aims to increase support to countries in the Sahel who in recent years have witnessed the sharp deterioration of their security situation, have seen forced migration increase, have witnessed an increase in climate change and signs of an acute food crisis. This year, as a result of a notable lack of rain and its spatial distribution, the food crisis, which was already structural in nature, is running the risk of increasing. In the Sahel, around 14 million people suffer food shortages, while 29 million people have a need for urgent humanitarian assistance. In this context, our partners have a moral obligation to help states of the Sahel to meet their challenges, but political levels in the sub-region must help their promises for good governance and constitutional order. COP26 must provide a moment for us to make good climate promises, and we need to ensure that there is proper access to clean energy and less expensive energy. In this context, it is the moral obligation of our international partners to help the states of the Sahel to meet these challenges, but it's also clear, as I was saying, that the political leaders of our sub-region must uphold their promises of good governance and the promise to ensure a return to constitutional orders to better meet the aspirations of their citizens and to improve their living conditions, namely in fragile areas.
السادة والسيدات إن حكومة الجمهورية
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, the government of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania continues to stand side by side and rally behind just causes throughout the world and in all international fora. From this high rostrum, my country reaffirms the right of the Palestinian people to live in dignity and enjoy their sovereignty in an independent, viable state with East Jerusalem as the capital, and this in accordance with the Arab Peace Initiative and relevant international resolutions, and in the framework of the two-state solution, namely two states which are living side by side in peace and stability. My country reaffirms its commitment to its unwavering position regarding the conflict in the Western Sahara. We have no particular side that we've taken. We are supporting the United Nations efforts as well as the relevant resolutions of the Security Council in order to achieve a lasting solution agreed upon by all. In this regard, my country urges the Secretary General to appoint without delay a special envoy to breathe new life into the process which halted 2 years ago following the resignation of the former envoy. My country also reiterates its support for international efforts taken to successfully conclude the transitional period in Libya, a brotherly nation, and to guarantee its unity and territorial integrity. My country reaffirms the need to reach a political solution which maintains unity and independence of the Syrian Arab Republic, a sister republic rather. We need to ensure the dignity of its people and its right to live in security and peace. Finally, my country reiterates its support for the legitimacy of the brotherly country of Yemen, and we call for a peaceful solution to the conflict pursuant to the Gulf Initiative as well as the resolutions that are relevant of the Security Council. May the peace and mercy of Allah be among you.